Hello friends, welcome to Spoken Quora. Have you ever had a great business idea but felt hesitant to act on it? Were you worried about lacking the knowledge or unsure of how much time you'd need to invest? Did you only get motivated when you realized the power you have to compete? Every person who comes up with a business idea faces this fear. Take Sun Fried and David Neem, for example. They had a great idea, but they didn't hesitate to implement it. What they learned from their experience may surprise you. You don't need to fear long hours, business meetings, and other boring tasks. As you'll see in this summary, you don't need to search for investors or partners, at least not at the start. In fact, according to Fried and Heinemeier, these things can actually be obstacles to your business success. And these two are not random people who decided to write a book and make money. They built their reputation a few years ago when they created the famous programming language Ruby on Rails. You may not have heard of it, but it powers some very popular apps and websites. But here's an important point. Don't start a business just because you want to make a lot of money. Sure, sometimes that greedy mindset can lead to success, but more often, it causes losses. Why? Because when you focus solely on money, you might neglect important aspects of your business in your pursuit of saving every penny. And this neglect can cause serious damage in the long run. Let's say you start a small company that develops apps. You only have a few employees, but of course, you want to expand. If your only focus is making money, you might start scaling up too quickly, hiring more employees and offering low salaries. But what happens when you pay people less? They'll do less work. It's that simple. On the other hand, you could adopt a different mindset. Instead of focusing only on money, you could say, wait, my company has a product, and I want this product to be the best. Money is just a byproduct of the quality of my company. If making great applications means paying employees more, then that's what I'll do. This approach applies to any business sector, whether it's pharmaceuticals, gaming, programming, or design. We're not saying that money isn't a motivator, but it shouldn't be your most important one. Did Bill Gates want to be the world's richest man when he started his own business? Probably not. He was just a young programmer who loved what he did and wanted to create the best product. And after about 30 years, he was leading one of the most powerful companies in the world. With Bill Gates, we come to an important point. People who start businesses just for profit often end up becoming incredibly powerful and flashy when they succeed. That was not the case with Bill Gates. You won't see him in sensational magazines with bold headlines. Even with his kids, he's the same. For instance, Bill Gates is very cautious about how his children use technology. He knows how hard it is to make money, and he wants to raise them in a way that helps them understand the real value of things. If you truly want to succeed, you should aim to do things this way. The takeaway here is simple. Focus on what you love. It's not that complicated. Chapter 1. Big marketing isn't for small, honest companies. In the first chapter, we discussed how building a quality-focused company is more important than making money. Here, we continue in that direction. If you follow this path, the most important advice you'll find in ReWork is that you'll naturally follow this principle. Forget about using false marketing strategies. If you truly focus on what you love and are genuinely ready to fight for your product, you won't need big marketing. Sure, your company might grow a bit slower, but you'll be able to focus all your attention on what truly matters, not on the trivial marketing tricks that everyone else focuses on. Let's start with an example from our own experiences. How many times have you seen a TV commercial that says, "Buy this hair product, and your hair will look more beautiful than ever"? You'll be noticed by that coworker who's been ignoring you because your hair will look amazing and it'll smell great too. Needless to say, these ads aren't exactly realistic. But you get the point. When you hear something like this, you instantly know the ad is lying. The whole purpose of advertisements and marketing is to pressure you into buying something, even if it means lying to you. You don't want to rely on this kind of marketing, especially if you're trying to sell something with real quality. We're not saying you should completely ignore marketing. It's necessary. But it's also not necessary to get caught up in dishonest tactics. Instead of creating ads that we've all seen 1,000 times, try something more genuine. Create something that stands out, something extraordinary. For example, instead of creating typical Christmas-themed ads, you could create an ad set in a tropical environment. After all, Coca-Cola has already monetized Christmas with countless TV ads. That means Christmas-themed ads are profitable for Coca-Cola, but not for you. So, keep it simple and, instead of focusing on marketing, try to create a product so good that it doesn't even need marketing. A workaholic immersed in work is not the same as a productive person. We live in a society that values hard work, where it's easy to become so immersed in work that we forget about all the other important things in life. But here's a crucial point. If you force yourself to work nonstop for long hours, you'll actually become less productive. Instead, work as much as you want, but don't demand the same from others. They'll respect you more because they'll see that you treat them as humans, not just machines. People in the West often boast about how much work they've done and how many hours they worked the previous week. While that's fine, it doesn't mean that everyone should be a workaholic. Workaholics are often perfectionists, and this combination can be deadly because it means they can't get anything done. Let's look at a real-life example. Mark worked at an accounting firm. Throughout his life, he had an obsession with completing his responsibilities. From school to his job, he was always focused on results. But he became so anxious when things didn't go perfectly. If something took him longer than expected, he would ignore basic needs like eating and sleeping, eventually becoming so sick that he couldn't even complete the tasks he had been postponing. Mark was a perfectionist. Nothing was ever good enough for him. He would always look for mistakes to fix, and once one was corrected, he would find another to fix. This cycle became incredibly stressful, not just for him, but also for those around him who weren't perfectionists. This doesn't mean you should ignore every mistake, but it's important to focus on what truly matters rather than getting caught up in the small details. Instead of pushing yourself to keep working endlessly, try to work efficiently until it suits you. The key to becoming an efficient worker is focusing for a few solid hours at a time. When you concentrate on something, you don't want to be distracted by things like social media or other interruptions. But in the world we live in, distractions are everywhere. It's hard to separate yourself from distractions like this. That's why you need to work hard to avoid them, especially when you've gotten into the habit of checking your social networks every 5 minutes. This is one of the key points emphasized by Jason Fried and David Heinemeier Hansson. They are programmers, and they couldn't afford to waste their time on unnecessary information. If you want to reduce social media usage while working, simply turn off your phone or at least disconnect from the internet. There are other techniques as well. For example, you can leave your phone in a place at the office where it's difficult to access. This way, you'll hardly be able to grab it. Of course, there are many more methods, but you should find the one that works best for you. Another productivity killer is long, pointless staff meetings. Fried and Heinemeier Hansson hated this type of meeting. Here's why. If 10 people attend a meeting that lasts just 1 hour, that's 10 hours of focused work time wasted on something else. Of course, not all meetings are bad. There are important decisions that can't be made without organizing a meeting, but you need to be cautious and not let it get out of hand. There are ways to make meetings more productive. For example, set a timer at the beginning of the meeting. When the time's up, the meeting ends. Simple as that. In addition, employers often don't like their employees attending meetings for the first time. Shy people, for instance, don't enjoy speaking in front of many people because it's not their thing. This is why you shouldn't assume that everything will be organized during meetings. Having face-to-face conversations with shy people often works better, as they can be given more space to speak and might offer better suggestions. Ultimately, this is less stressful for them. Starting your business requires less thinking than you might think. People today are extremely cautious about the future. They don't invest their time or money in something unless they're completely sure it will benefit them. That's why many people never develop their business ideas. The world today teaches you to prepare everything carefully, plan 10 years ahead, gather investors, and so on. But in ReWork, you'll learn that these are just excuses for not starting your business. Let's say you get an idea to open a Vietnamese restaurant in your own city. You love Vietnamese food, enjoy cooking it, and seeing people return their empty plates gives you joy. Naturally, you'll want to expand. However, immediately, you face several obstacles. Where should you open it? How tough will the competition be? What about your 5-year plan? After some time, you might end up quitting and sitting comfortably in your comfort zone. What Jason Fried and David Heinemeier Hansson teach you is simple. Do what you love. Just open the restaurant, and see where it goes. As you lead the restaurant, you will inevitably make some crucial changes that will move you toward success. You won't be able to foresee these changes until you take that first bold step. Today, online, you'll find millions of self-made consultants trying to convince you that you need to pay them to learn about business and success. Don't fall for their tricks. Most of them don't have real knowledge, and what they do is nothing more than talk. Chapter 2. Don't be afraid to start small. This is one of the most important takeaways from ReWork. The authors repeat it so often that we simply have to highlight it. First of all, there's a lot to love about small businesses. Everything is smaller, more personal. You know every employee and their families personally. You build a tight-knit community of people fighting for the same idea. This is something worth cherishing, because as you grow, you lose that sense of closeness. So, don't be afraid to start small. Use whatever you have, whatever works for you, and see how things go. Don't drown in debt just because you think your idea will work. If you bravely decide to start your business, chances are you already have a job. Instead of quitting your old job completely, try doing both and see how things are progressing. Don't spend countless hours working on your new business. Start by thinking it through and dedicate a few hours a week to developing your business idea. After some time, you'll be able to decide whether you need to quit your old job entirely. Starting small means some aspects of your company will remain underdeveloped. You should focus on these core sectors from the start, the sectors without which your business cannot function. Let's go back to the Vietnamese restaurant example. The key things you need for opening such a place are, of course, food ingredients, and you want the best ingredients you can get. On the other hand, who cares about the quality of the chairs in your restaurant? As long as you can sit without falling off, they're doing their job, at least at the start. Let's take another example. Let's say you love painting. This is your passion, and it's something you love to do the most. Now, there's one thing you need to pay attention to, your skill. If you spend all your time and money on external things like frames, you'll end up being an average painter with average work. This applies to music as well. Instead of focusing on what's truly important, like your technique, you end up getting distracted by superficial things, like looks. And once again, you'll end up being a good-looking but average musician. In the end, don't be afraid to start small. Most importantly, focus on getting the essential things right. Chapter 3. Don't rush to find investors. This is another pitfall, rushing into your job. As soon as you achieve your first success, you might start looking for investors who can help you grow your business. But by doing this, you're making several mistakes. First, finding investors means giving up part of your share in the company. If things move forward successfully, you'll end up with less money because you were too hasty in the beginning. Second, by relying on investors, you'll depend on their opinions to change your company's rules, and this is something you don't want. Ultimately, you want to start your own business because you want to be the leader who can make decisions. Here's another important point. If you want to start a business with the intention of selling it, once it becomes somewhat successful, don't bother starting it at all. Don't rely on resumes or formal education. The first lesson is that when hiring, do it only when absolutely necessary. That way, you'll have employees who are crucial to the business and will understand their responsibility to show up and contribute. When it comes to hiring people yourself, be careful not to copy the way big companies do it. They often create endless job interviews based on resumes. But this is just a waste of time. Instead, trust your gut feeling. Rather than reading through countless resumes, get help from your existing employees to find potential new ones. If you already have hardworking and reliable employees, don't be afraid to ask them to help you find good candidates. Why bother with resumes that don't really tell you much? There are people who write resumes just to get paid. Even if you notice this during the interview, why waste time? Instead, hold a few interviews based on your employees' recommendations and see how things go for you. Chapter 4. Failure is not just an option. Failure is not just a possibility. It's a learning opportunity. It's important to understand that once you accept failure, you can approach setbacks with a calm mindset. Think about it. Did Usain Bolt win every race he ever ran? Definitely not. Does having a good idea guarantee success? Not at all. That's why you need to accept failure, no matter how big it may be, because it will definitely come. Instead of trying to suppress failure, you should accept it and be prepared for it, at least emotionally. For example, let's say everything is going well. You started your business, expanded it, and maybe you've even borrowed more money than you had. But then, you realize you won't be able to repay your debt. Instead of worrying too much about it, accept that the problem exists, but you can handle it. Be honest with yourself and say, yes, I've failed, but now I know what not to do in the future. There's a good saying about problems. There's no such thing as a problem, only a solution. If you approach the situation with this mindset, you'll see the problem as a challenge that can be solved. This attitude is essential when leading a business. Many extremely successful people struggled in the early years of their careers before becoming some of the most successful people in the world. For instance, if Bill Gates had only measured his worth by academic success, we wouldn't have Microsoft today because Bill Gates wasn't a particularly good student. So friends, that was our book summary for today. I hope you found this summary insightful and that you've captured the key points along the way. If you didn't jot them down earlier, don't worry. Simply grab a pen and paper, relax, and go ahead and rewatch the video. Focus on each point, because every single one has the potential to bring a positive change to your life.